Hello, Playdate. This is Don.
This is Nick.
And I'm Ryan.
This week we are covering Playdate news.
Recent indie releases.
And coming down off that 50 episode high with episode 51.
Thanks for listening. Let's get started with a quick correction. I'm not going to point fingers, but ears open, Ryan. The Playdate Jam 5 we mentioned was going on right now. It is not going on until April. So thank you to Wallmaster / Alistair Lowe / Low Tech Gaming. He's got lots of aliases for pointing out that Play Jam 5 starts in about 2 months, April 19th to April 22nd. So there'll be a link in the show notes. You can sign up now, and then in 2 months you can get started on that one.
Awesome. Thank you, Wallmaster, for the correction to Don, whatever he said. No, just kidding. I messed up. Thank you, Wallmaster, Alistair Lowe, Low Tech Gaming. April, looking forward to it. Yeah,
it's coming soon. Speaking of coming soon, Ryan.
Hey, boop, 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 boop. News and notes. So just a reminder to anyone listening that all of these news and notes are in the show notes for today's episode. If you want to check those out, feel free. And we shall start with Panic releases new games showcase, depending upon when you listen to this, either tomorrow or today or in the past. They're airing it on Wednesday, February 28th, 2024 at noon Eastern. And there is a link in the show notes, as we mentioned. One of the anticipated games they are going to be talking about is Mars something. I'm a good
Mars After Midnight.
Thank you.
By Lucas Pope.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Aside from that, we don't know a whole lot else that they're going to release, but this coincides with another hubity boop news and note that Panic will be at the OMSI, which is the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry After Dark event called Game On. This is February 8th as well. We've got a link for you in the show notes, but it's a ticketed event, $25, but you can meet the folks at the Panic. Also, this is the first time that Playdates will be on sale, on site, in person. So we've already reported that they've caught up on the backlogs of orders. Well, here's another first. First time you can purchase one in person at this OMSI event, February 28th, 2024. What do you guys think about all that?
That's very cool. Because you put Ryan before all of your news and notes, I was thinking you were going to be there too. And then I was like, oh, that's weird. He's going to be in Oregon. Oh, no. But Playdate also Panic also being there. Very cool. So
yeah. Makes sense. They're in Oregon too, right?
They're in Washington, aren't they?
Oh, is that right?
Or California? They are in one of the states. I don't think it's Oregon though.
I thought they were in the Pacific Northwest somewhere. I may have defaulted to Oregon. Are they Washington? Okay. Somebody look that up while I'm reading the next hibbity boop news and note that Bullfrog and released last week on catalog, and also in quotation marks, the web. They said, and the web. I assumed that meant itch, but in my very cursory search, I did not find them on itch, so I don't know where else in the web that might be. Maybe their personal websites, or maybe I just missed it. Regardless, they are available, and it was, if I'm not mistaken, an off-cycle release, right? It was just like a 2-game catalog release?
That is correct, just those two. And Panic is Panic is located in Oregon, in Portland.
Thank you. You can put that on the corrections for next episode.
I just did. I corrected it this episode.
Okay. Well, I like it when you're wrong, though.
Bullfrog and Bullfrog was a Flash game, I guess. You guys played it?
I've not.
This is like a deluxe version. Let me grab the name real quick. Where's the link? I thought we had a link in here. Anyway, I put it in the show notes. It's not in our notes, but it's in the show notes. Yeah, Bullfrog, when I looked it up, it was an old Flash game on a math site.
Huh.
It was like Cool Math Games, I think is the name of the site.
Cool Math Games. Huh.
It was a site I recognized from my kids playing anyway.
Okay.
But that I have not played that one. I did play some but not very much. The what is it? It's like a phobia of like holes in things. Anyway, the bullet coming out of the butt of the Roomba, it gives me that phobia. It tickles something in me that is not appealing. Uh the game is fun, but like seeing the little butt of the ship like stretch a little bit before the bullet comes out, it's a little unnerving.
This is a real thing for you, Don.
Yeah, it looks kind of gross. It's like um kind of like the Dr. Pimple Popper shows. I can't deal with those. It's like almost like that. I can't deal with that. I don't know.
Interesting. Wow. There's a severe and sincere aesthetic aversion to the graphics. I didn't realize that.
The
Never
game
would
is
have thought that.
good, but yeah.
But ooh boy, those not sure what
Just
to
don't
deem
look at
that.
the butt of the ship very much.
Okay. All right. Nick, you got that? No looking at the backside of the
Yeah, I think, Don, you're talking about trypophobia.
Sure. That sounds like a thing. It sounds
I,
right. I've heard that word.
I love that
I'll,
that was Nick's contribution. What does that mean, Nick?
I'll ask my shrink.
It's the fear of small holes.
Ripping open and
Like a
having
bunch of,
bullets come out of them.
Well, that's slightly different, but I'm sure it's a modified version. I was thinking you were talking about like the people who there were some articles when the Xbox Series X came out and all the holes in the top
Oh,
of that.
yeah.
Yeah. Similar.
We don't need to go down this hole too far.
All right, I see what you did there. Why don't we move on to the Hoobity Boop Indie Inventory, where we encourage you to rate and review games. 1,000,000 stars only, but that really does help out the devs, or so they tell us. So we want to tell you the same thing. And Don, you want to start us out with this menagerie of new games that have seen publication since our last episode?
And I thought you might want to mention this first one because it says you played it.
Yeah, I did play this. Thanks to you notifying me about it. This one's called Gunboat Willie, and it's by Germzer, Germz. How do you do this every time, Don?
I know.
Germzer. And in case you've been in a cave for the past couple weeks or so, Steamboat Willie is now in the public domain. So Mickey Mouse is still owned by Disney and copyrighted and trademarked and, put behind bars and all that. But Steamboat Willie of the 1928 film is now in the public domain. So we're seeing a bunch of Steamboat Willie stuff coming out from all sorts of different folks, and it has not escaped the Playdate. Germs seems to have come out with a game, and I sideloaded this bad boy, and the graphics are really fantastic. Actually, I really enjoyed not only the steamboat and the gigantic Pete character, but also the subtle background that has this bit of parallax behind it as you're cruising through this massive river. Gameplay is a bit repetitive. You can tell that it was sort of hurried out to capitalize on this Steamboat Willie hubbub that's going on right now. But essentially, you're a steamboat and you're shooting Mick bombs. So there are bombs in the water that are shaped like Mickey heads. And every 10 bombs you hit, you make your way toward this sort of boss character that's Pete in the water, Mickey's, antagonist. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's it. So anyhow, you make your way toward him, and he starts spooting some droplets toward you in some form or fashion. And each time he appears, these drops come in different patterns, different formations, different speeds. Occasionally, he will even summon musical notes toward you. And of course, all of these are obstacles that you have to avoid. So if I'm being honest, the gameplay is a little bit repetitive, but I was actually a little bit surprised at how the boss kind of reminded me of killer NES games where you'd have this gigantic boss come on the screen and you were so wowed as a kid. And looking back, there's just very little animation going on within those bosses, but it really did give me that sense of wonder and awe that I had as a kid when this giant head popped on the screen. So anyhow, Don, thanks for shooting me toward this game. I had some fun with it.
Jur on our Discord had mentioned that they made it to level 100 and just came with the same loop. I played a bit of it. Yeah, it needs more variety, but there are notes on the itch page. The dev says they want to add more game modes in future updates and maybe new
I
enemies.
will
So that'd be nice.
make a slight rebuttal there. I actually made it to 120, 130, something like that. And there is still variety up there. Every time you make it to Pete, again, a new type of sequence, a different speed of sequence, something a little bit different happens each time. I haven't made it past 120, 130, so I don't know how long the variety keeps up, but I was surprised at the mild variety.
Anyway, that one is Name Your Own Price. It's up on itch now.
Indeed.
Next up, another Damosh game is Plate Spinner. And he said this was just a quick one he wanted to crank out. And it's what it sounds like. You're trying to spin a bunch of plates. And the idea is your little cowboy dude moves from plate to plate. They look like the letter T, and they all start spinning. And you kind of go from plate to plate, and the plate will start wobbling as it slows down. And you just have to get over there, crank it, then move back and forth the D-pad, crank, 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 crank. And there are little power-ups that show up now and then at the base of the sticks, I guess. You can also, the screen, it scrolls, I guess. So some of the plates you don't see. It's not just one stationary screen. Some of them you have to move off screen, so you lose track of others because you can't see all of the plates at once. So it does get challenging pretty quick, but it's really cool, simple idea that is pretty fun. So definitely worth a look. It's a really fun use of the crank. And yeah, cool.
It reminded me of sort of a Game and Watch type of aesthetic where you start out slow, but then the difficulty ramps up pretty quickly, even within somewhat repetitive gameplay. It really is a challenge. I've not played it yet, though. I'm interested. Have you played this, Don?
Yeah, I've played it. Yeah, I enjoyed it. Nick, have you given it a shot? No, not yet.
Nick shakes
Nick,
his
is your
head on
mic
audio
working?
podcast. In case you all missed
I
that,
was
We'll
in
interpret
another
from
tab.
Yeah, no, I have played it, and it, again, simple concept, simple execution, but really fun. It doesn't need to be anything more than this. We'll say it all the time, but it reminds me of a WarioWare minigame.
Really?
Really, except it uses the crank
which one?
very well. No, it reminds me of that style of game, like the paper airplane thing that could be expanded to obviously a longer gameplay, a mini game instead of a micro game. Same thing here. This is more of a mini game than a micro game, and you do have lives. If you break a plate, it's okay because you have up to 3. But when I did break my plates, I broke them all, bam, 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 pretty close together. I had it all going for a while, and then it all fell apart.
This looks really fun, so I'm looking forward to trying it.
Yeah. Anyway, that's Plate Spinner, Damush Games. Name your own price. Next up by J10 is Legend of Penguin. This is a dungeon escape game. I did play a little bit of this. I did not finish it, but if I remember right, this was sort of like a more simple dungeon game. This is sort of like a Zelda type or a wood type game, or woodland game that we were like on the Playdate. Similar to that. The graphics are pretty rudimentary, and so like I died right away and didn't really understand why, but it's because the spikes are sort of an unusual pattern. And once I got used to what the game was trying to convey, it came together pretty quickly. Like, oh, this is what ice looks like, or this is what water looks like, this is what a fish looks like, this is what spikes look like. It didn't take very long, but it's cute and it's pretty funny. Like there are pop culture references and whatnot in the dialogue. Anyway, Legend of Penguin. This one is Name Your Own Price. You want a little adventure.
Looks fun. Nice and pulpy. Getting back to some pulp adventures. I feel like we've not had a bunch of those for a while.
No, yeah. Yeah, what's up with that? Why did
I
we get away from pulp games for a bit?
I I'm guessing we just sort of had a bit of a glut of them for a while. Maybe people needed a break, and yeah, it's nice to see another one coming back. It's cool.
Hmm.
Legends of Penguin. Cool.
Uh,
Well, we are lousy with name your price games this week
yeah.
because we've got another one coming up here. What's this next one?
Next one is Orbeats by Palette. This is a rhythm game. Nick, this one plays like a typical sort of rhythm game. You
Hmm.
use the, uh, gosh, I was trying to think of the Waka. Have you seen the Waka arcade games where it's like a
I've
big
heard of
dish?
them, but I haven't played. Oh yeah, is that
Okay.
the washing machine looking
It
one?
looks like a washing machine. Yeah. If you've
Yeah,
seen these
yeah.
in the
Okay.
arcades, you move your hand along the outside of a circle, and that's how you play the game. This is the same thing.
Hmm.
You use the crank to move a ball around the outside of the circle, and you try and follow it. It's pretty tricky to play. Like I had to play through the tutorial a couple times, and I feel like I need to give it some more shots. Like they say it's in beta, and when it works, but I have a hard time getting into the rhythm of the game because there is both a beat type and a control where your ball will shoot across the washing machine.
Hmm.
And it's hard to kind of anticipate that with the rhythm. But it's really cool. I can see this being a really great rhythm game once you get the feel for it. So again, that's Orbeats. Right now it is name your own price.
It looks killer. It looks
Yeah,
like it should be a really fun crank-based rhythm game. I just downloaded it right now. Can't wait to play it.
cool. It's got multiple difficulty settings as well, which is really nice.
Neat.
Next up is Krong by Mamonaku. And this is, I normally don't mention the 1,000 Pong games that are on the Playdate because there's like 5 every week. But I like the name of this being so weird, and it just looked endearing looking at the GIFs and whatnot, chiptune beats. It's got different modes, and it just looked cute. And the way that the itch page is written, uh, the the dev seemed excited about this project. So
Don, have you
I
played
just wanted to
this?
throw him a bone. No, I don't like Pong, so I have not played it.
I was gonna ask
That's
you
just me.
the animated GIF shows this like concentric triangle
Yeah.
continually coming up in the background, and man, that's making my head explode right now.
I,
Mm.
I feel
yeah.
like it would be difficult to parse that during gameplay.
That's the Krongsicle. Yeah, I don't know.
Right.
I guess I could give it a shake. I'll give it a shake for you, Ryan, and let you know how it goes.
Well, at name your own price, I think we can all give it a shake. So
Okay.
maybe we'll talk about it sometime.
We'll commit to a Krong off before the next show.
We'll have to link cable our play dates together.
Right. All right. Next up is Sheep Gather. This is the kid
Is
one
that
I
like
was
Sheep
thinking of.
Launcher?
It
That's
is
got to be
nothing
like
like,
Sheep
well,
Launcher.
I've never played Sheep Launcher. It might be.
Oh my gosh.
This is by Midnight Cupcakes. It looks cute. This one is a kid's game where you go around, it's sort of like Snake, but not frantic. You go around collecting sheep, and your trail of sheep gets longer and longer as you go explore through fields and beaches and whatnot, collecting different sheep. There's 10 different maps, and yeah, it's for kids, so it's meant to be simple gameplay and not intrusive if you make a mistake.
That looks like a
Not
super
punishing.
cute pulpy game. Looks real
Yes.
fun.
Yeah. This one's $1.
Cool.
And a YouTube video if you want to learn more about it. All right, now we're into the catalog games already. So we've already mentioned and Bullfrog. Nick, have you checked out the catalog games this week?
I have not.
Well, you're in for a treat. First up is Move and Match by Igor Stepanov. This one I had never heard of till today when these
Mhm.
dropped. And it is a match 3 game, but the playfield is not a rectangle or a square. It's looks like the playfield changes shape every time. So
Hmm.
a Sukaban, is that looks like Sukabani kind of
Sokoban?
Sokoban? Is that it? Sokoban. Looks like that type of game, but maybe with a spin on it. I don't know. art style looks simple and clean. It looks good. I've not played it.
That does look like a really cool puzzler. And by the way, for all the elk cheapos out there, it is on sale right now for $4. It's usually $5. So get it while it's hot.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that. I think this is the first time we've seen that on catalog, right?
First time I'm remembering a sale on catalog.
It specifically says usually it's $5 at the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that interface.
Mm-hmm. So pretty neat. So hop on it if you're interested. Next up is Icarus by Matt Sefton, or Super Icarus, excuse me. Icarus came out a couple months ago. I think it was part of a game jam.
Mm-hmm.
So this one adds new features and online scoreboard and whatnot. So this one was pretty tough. Like the concept is easy, but the actual gameplay is very difficult. You're like a little paper airplane, and you're trying to just not hit the outside of the screen. So you're using the crank to kind of not hit stuff, like an endless runner. But it's such a small screen; it's pretty difficult. So it's fun though. I mean, again, easy to play, difficult to master. $6, and it looks a little bit different than what I remember. So maybe there's some graphical changes here too.
Can you guys jog my faulty memory? What else has Matt Sefton done?
He did Yo-Yozo. He did
That's
Sparrow
right.
Solitaire.
Yep. Okay. With you. Cool. Thank you for setting me straight.
Sure. Next up is Ren Sword. You can spell and write things. Nick, does this look familiar?
No, it doesn't look familiar, but it does look awesome. I'm looking forward to playing it.
Something about it
Maybe-
like nags at me that we've
maybe
seen
it
it
is
before,
familiar.
but I feel like I would have jumped on this right away if I'd seen it before.
I don't remember seeing it before, but I don't remember a lot of things, so I don't know.
Okay.
So this looks like very firmly a word game to me, but then it's
Mhm.
also featured in addition to puzzle games, RPG games. Are you guys seeing this?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you look at some of the screenshots that are on the page, there will be things like hit points and damage for each letter, those kind of things. So
Huh.
it
So are you like
sure looks like an RPG.
wording your enemies to death?
Hmm.
Okay.
Guess so.
That's how it appears.
Trying
That's
to
the way
look
I
up
feel
the.
sometimes. Like
Oh,
I'm
did you
getting
guys ever
worded
play
to death.
Spellspire?
No, what's that?
No.
This looks a lot like Spellspire. It was it's on Steam. It was a mobile game. I think that's where I played it. But same concept. You are spelling words and they will
Huh.
do different magic attacks, and your little wizard will heal enemies that way to progress through the
Neat.
level. It's like maybe 10 years old.
Hmm.
Anyway, cool game. It was I think it was an early-ish mobile game. Oh, it's by 10 Tons. That's why. I love 10 Tons. That was the developer. They made Tesla versus Lovecraft.
Oh,
I
okay.
raved about for a long time.
Yes.
I believe you.
The days of podcast past. Anyway, I'll probably pick this up. $7. Ren Sword. Laser Sphere is the next game. Sean Inman. He did Ratcheteer and Word Trip, and now he's
Oh, wow.
back with Laser Sphere. This one looks really cool. It's got like a little bit of Geometry Wars, but you don't move. You just sit there
Mhm.
and blast stuff and suck up the power cells to upgrade your laser sphere, I guess. I don't know. Graphics look cool.
This looks really-
Again, these came out today. That's the one bad part is like it's hard to talk about the stuff that came out today, but it's good that we can, I guess. We're on the ball.
This looks really difficult from the GIFs. I'm curious if that perception is reality.
Very
Yeah.
interesting. They even have a list of tips on the catalog page too. I don't know that I've seen that before. That's really cool.
Love that.
Yeah.
I wonder if Destination Playdate. I should check out that again and see if he's hit up any of these recent Playdate catalog games. I'll do that. If Destination Playdate has any of these listed on YouTube, I'll throw a link in the show notes.
Yeah,
But,
I think I saw him do one on if I'm not mistaken.
Oh,
But
cool.
yeah,
Okay, thank you.
sure.
Anyway, looks great. And last up is Pixel Sketch. We mentioned last week, but it is
Nice.
now on catalog. It's $3, and that is by Jared
Jared
Benson,
Benson. Yep.
Pixelverse Labs. And Ryan, this is a game where you could make art. Ryan was excited about last time, and there's daily battles. Ryan entered the daily battle. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I don't know if I entered it correctly, but I shared it on our Discord and the developer chimed in. That was real cool. And he totally schooled me. He made this incredible rendition of what was it? It was like a flask or a bottle or something was the
Potion.
daily challenge. And yeah, I felt very silly afterwards. He really did an incredible version. And I love all these pixel art robots that are cycling through on these animated GIFs on the page. I went ahead and bought it on itch before it came out on catalog. But man, it's a real very cool art program. I think there's a couple things that could uh, be changed for user interface ease, because right now there's like a list of things going along the right hand side that you can sort of crank through and then choose if that's the thing you want to go in your pixel or not. And if you cycle one past, like you'd have to cycle all the way through the entire list again to, loop back to the one that you wanted rather than just crank backwards one to get to that thing. So I mentioned that in the Discord. I'm not sure if he was able to implement that or not, but outside of those minor gripes, it was real fun. And there's like a ton of different like little dithering elements that you can choose from to really make your illustrations feel like they have more depth. So anyway, high recommendation for this, and it's only $3 on catalog right now. So if you have any interest in creating art or pixel art, period, I would suggest picking up this one.
What happens if you crank backwards? Just nothing?
Nothing. It
Oh,
uh,
okay.
it did not crank backwards.
Okay. Yeah, it
Yeah.
seems like there's some movement for that to happen then.
Yeah, he seemed receptive and open to that suggestion. So maybe it made it into this catalog release. I don't know. We should probably touch base with him. Or hey, Jared Benson, if you're listening to this, please let us know if there's been any movement in that regard. We'd love to announce it.
And last time I mentioned that an image with Pixel Sketch, and it was actually I made it with Playmaker. It was inspired by the Pixel Sketch contest, but I didn't realize we had to use Pixel Sketch. I made it in Playmaker, but Mouflon Cloud imported my image to his game Kai, or Key, I think it's pronounced. So I'll put a link to that in the show notes. And it's a port. Key is a Matt Sefton port along with Mouflon Cloud of an action puzzle classic. I tried playing this. Like if you donated money to a charity, you could download this, I guess, for free with the donation. And I tried playing it and I couldn't figure it out. But I think Nick and we talked about it a while back. I think maybe Ryan wasn't on that episode because it was an older PC game. But maybe you didn't remember it, or it was another one of those obscure games that were lost to time or something. Anyway, link in the show notes if you want to check that out as well. So anyway, Mouflon Cloud, that was really cool. Thanks for doing that.
Is that it for indie inventory?
You're up, Ryan.
Oh, roobity boop boop. Then let's get to the pick of the week, which is malfunctioning, which is from Dawn this week. Dawn, take it away.
We're real loose today. That's okay. Yeah, our pick of the week today is satOlite by Lubu.
Yes. Yeah.
This is a tower defense game where there's no slots or grids. There's just planets, and you are placing satellites that orbit around the planets. And they just, wherever you stick them, you use the crank to kind of pick out where you're going to stick them. And then they start following the gravitational pull. And the campaign is 25 levels. And it is a campaign. So once you beat level 25, that's the end of the campaign. And there's
I think it's 28 levels.
No, I think it's 25. I
Okay.
completed it after 25 levels.
Nick got the plus version.
Extended version. Yeah.
He got the extended
Sorry.
cut, the director cut.
Playing the DLC. Yeah.
Hey, Don, are you
Yeah.
ready for this?
Yes.
Nick, how many levels did you make it through?
I was gonna say 27, but I guess it's 23. I don't know. I'm on the one before the end.
Okay.
You know when it's pretty clear when it ends.
I'm like 99% positive it's 25 levels.
I'm looking right now. Anyway, if it's 1 level or 100 levels, there is a last level, and you unlock something. It is 25, and you unlock something when you finish the levels. I'll just put it that way.
This is why
gives the
people
game
tune
more
in.
replayability.
We come with the facts.
Eventually, might take a couple weeks.
In the subsequent episode
25.
or so, but still, we
Yeah.
make it there.
Yeah. Anyway, let's give some thoughts. We'll start with Nick before he nods off into the bonus episode or the bonus content.
Yeah, I really enjoy games with a narrative focus, and I enjoyed that this game had a narrative focus. It's a little unusual for certain types of tower defense games outside of something like Plants vs. Zombies or whatever, where there's a bit of a through line. But this is much more in your face with the narrative, which I enjoyed quite a lot. The mechanics are really simple. There is enough variety to keep you engaged, and the mechanics are revealed at a nice pace. There's some interesting challenges that occur throughout the course of the narrative that are driven by the narrative, which I thought was pretty clever and fun. Yeah, overall, I thought it was nicely paced, and the difficulty was pretty even all the way through up until the next to last stage, which is where I had to stop playing. It's a fun game.
Nice. Yeah, I would agree with pretty much all that. So Don, when you sold this to us as a planetary tower defense game, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I've never played tower defense games. I've never played planetary tower defense games. And so I went into this a little trepidatious, and I was real happy with my experience from start to finish, really. It eases you into gameplay at a really beginner pace. So I felt comfortable. I didn't feel silly or like I didn't know what was going on. And when you are given instructions, it's through this really fun, witty banter between basically your commander and a computer that looks a lot like a Playdate. And I really enjoyed their back and forth and found myself laughing out loud a number of times. And they come back every single level and describe to you yet another new mechanic. And so the new mechanics come every single level. So it never gets stale. It never gets repetitive. You're learning, but then you're building upon what you learn. So by the time you're on level 25, which is the last one, then you've really got a lot of knowledge built up. And when you sort of, complete the game and hop back to level number 1, it's like, oh yeah, wow, I've really come a long way. So it felt really great. The challenge, I thought, was pretty much perfect, actually. I would hit a new level, and not often could I complete it on the first try. I usually had to try a different thing or 2 or 3, depending upon the difficulty of the levels, but it was never to the point where I was like banging my head against the wall trying to figure out how to solve this thing. It allows you a few different options for how to solve the puzzle. And I really found it very, very fun. This was real. This will rank high on my list for games of 2024, assuming it was published then. Was this at the tail end of 2023 that it was published? Regardless,
I think it came out this
I
year.
liked it a whole bunch.
I don't remember seeing it. Ooh, 5 months ago. Oh, I look forward to playing it. No, I think it came out this month. Or this year.
Looks like it was published October 5th, 2023.
Well, that's when the page was published, but I don't think the game was out yet.
Interesting. How do you know that?
because the page goes up like a pre-sale page. I think 2 months ago, I think January it came out. It's hard to tell on itch like the actual release date for the game. I can see when I downloaded. Oh no. I downloaded it a long time ago, but I didn't purchase it till we did the show.
Alrighty.
I
Anyway,
know. It's so
I liked
annoying.
it. I liked it a whole bunch. I thought it was really fantastic.
Hmm.
Easily worth the $5 price tag, in my humble opinion.
Yes, I would agree. I think that the pacing was really good. Like the little conversations between each level didn't overstay their welcome.
Yeah.
There was just enough text where it wasn't annoying. It did get on the levels where I died over and over. I wish there was like just a skip dialogue button, like I could just hold B or something, because that was just like, let me just crank through these.
Well,
It wasn't even that long.
You can though. You can press A and just flip right through them.
Yeah, I know.
You mean like a single?
Yeah, just like a single
button.
push
Okay.
B to skip conversation.
Gotcha. Okay.
Like pushing AAA was fine, but a little faster, just because some of them I did die, 5-6 times or more, I think. But speaking of that, there is also a God mode, which if you are really stuck, you can toggle on God mode in the menu, and basically you still have to play the level, but you won't die. And then when you go to the next level, God mode toggles back off. So it doesn't just stay on forever, which is really neat because it lets you get through the one you're on, and then you get to try the next one on your own.
That's interesting. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm done.
I was going to say, I never tried that, so I didn't know what that meant exactly. I guess I always powered my way through the levels, but that's neat to know that that's there. Did you ever use that? Does that mean you get unlimited funding or unlimited different satellites that you can put around the planets, or what does that mean exactly?
It seems to be like unlimited damage. You don't get unlimited funding, but it doesn't matter how many ships come through. Typically, only 5 ships can come through your solar system, and then it's game over. You have to start the level over. But in God mode, more than 5 can come through. But I did notice sometimes in God mode, I would lose a bar of health, and I'm not really sure why. I used it when I needed to. One other small thing is at some points there's a lot of weapons in your inventory, and I kind of wish they had a graphical cue, like a laser had maybe a triangle, a railgun had a line or something, just so it'd be easier to kind of click, oh yeah, I can access this faster. When you're really trying to grab the right thing, there's multiple types of lasers, multiple types of EMPs, and sometimes my brain would get mixed up on which time I really wanted. And I think when you're trying to plan a strategy very quickly, it's easy to pick the wrong one.
Yeah, I really like that suggestion. Actually, I'm all about visuals, and so I guess I sort of wrote it off as it was just me that might be having that problem, but it heartens me to hear that I wasn't the only one. With that said, Dawn, you were mentioning it would be nice to be able to choose something quicker on the fly as you're in battle. But just to clarify for the listeners, as you are choosing your satellites to cruise around your planets, you are in pause. Like the ships do not continue flying. They're not moving past your solar system. Like you can take your time and think about which one you want to choose and where you want to place it. So I found that helpful. It didn't make me feel like I was in too much of a rush or anything.
That's true, but I felt the immediacy of there's these ships coming. I gotta put up some defenses.
Yeah.
Just as a player. Nick,
Makes sense.
Are you still there?
Yes.
I'm wondering if we should ask Nick for more input, or if he's just wants to listen in.
I like your suggestions.
Okay, fair enough. One small thing that is kind of good and bad is that some of the stages were really fun, but you only get to experience them for like one stage or maybe 2 stages here or there. Some of the gimmicks, it's like, oh man, that's a good idea. Like I kind of want to do that again. And you can replay stages, of course. But
like what are you talking about? I want to
I
hear
don't want
these.
to. I don't want to spoil too much, but there are
We're into
definitely.
spoiler territory. Come
Are
on.
we okay? Let's just say I really like this
Beep, beep, beep.
game. Ryan, it
Spoiler
sounds like you
territory.
like this game. Nick, I can't see or hear you, but Nick, this is his game of the year for 2024. All right, we're kind of in spoiler-ish territory. I'm not going to do any story spoilers, but as far as weapon spoilers, there's uh a planet type that is not a planet. It's just a rig, and you can use the crank to move your satellites along the rig.
Yeah.
I really like that, and I found myself often putting my satellites on one side of the rig and just like heavy-handed using that as like to dominate whatever I wanted to hit instead of evenly distributing them around the rig. I really like that. There's one where basically it sets a beam between 2 points. And so you have a satellite on one planet, satellite on another, and whenever they see each other, it'll create a beam that ships cannot pass through or they'll be destroyed. That was really tricky to time, but it was fun. Like I never was able to really master it because the levels were so short, but it was cool. It's a really cool idea.
Okay, so point of conversation. First, you mentioned the like stationary rig that you control. So the planet is not spinning the satellites around, like you're spinning the satellites around.
Yeah.
That came up multiple times, I'm quite sure of.
Yeah, more than once.
Yeah. And so also in counterpoint to the way you played, I thought was really interesting to hear actually, because the way I would typically play those stationary planet or not stationary, I guess we should call them manually moving planets.
Sure.
Anyway, I would typically put my satellites on opposite sides of the planet so that the ships coming on either side could receive some battle damage. And if they split up, if the ships split up and I had all my defenses on only one side of the planet, then I was afraid I wasn't going to be able to defend the ships going the other way. So I thought that was really interesting to hear your strategy for that. That was very different from mine. The other one you mentioned were the kind of tightrope satellites, for lack of a better word. Like when they saw each other, they'd form a beam. I agree. I thought that was a really interesting gimmick, but wasn't there at least opportunities after that to also use that same mechanic?
I only noticed it on 2 stages.
Okay,
but maybe I was leaning on a different weapon. Maybe I was leaning on torpedoes and I just was scrolling past it because there's not a lot of visual, like I said, there's not a lot of visual difference in that weapon menu. And sometimes I was just scrolling until I saw the thing I wanted.
Yeah.
So that's possible.
Makes sense. Cool. Yeah, man, Don, I don't know if we're done talking about this yet, but I am so glad you picked this one. Yeah, I never would have selected this. It was not as instantly graphically impressive as some games that I'll typically get excited about and plunk some money down on. It's very like geometric and circular with all the planets, but man, did I ever have a real good time with this game.
Good. I'm glad you liked it.
I really did. Like this is going to make it into some list, in a year's time.
Oh, you know what? It might have come out in December because the cutoff for awards was November 30th. And almost all of these comments were 2 months ago. So maybe it did come out in December. A lot of games came out the first week of December, and so they were not eligible for Playdate awards. I'm wondering if that's the situation. Yeah, but I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm not going to give away any story stuff, but there also are story quirks that affect different levels, which I really liked that. I did not expect it. So when the first one came up, I was like, whoa, this is really neat. This game, there's more to it than I thought. And I saw comments, there's a couple on itch. I think I saw them somewhere else too, where the Playdate would stutter when there were a lot of enemies on screen, but I didn't really experience that. It ran pretty smooth for me.
I only experienced stutter at the end of each level, but that felt natural.
When everything
I
was exploding, or when it was just wrapping up, or what?
Yeah, right. When the last enemy is exploded, there's a brief frame dip before it moves to the success screen.
Okay.
Yeah, I did experience stutter as well. It was never like crippling gameplay stutter, but it was definitely there on the more ambitious levels where you get a bunch of ships going on. So you know, it
Okay.
did not bother me.
Okay. Yeah. If it was there, I didn't. It obviously it didn't bother me. Um, Maybe I was waiting for it to be really bad because of the comments.
Hmm.
Ran right past it. Anyway, that's all I have to say about it. If you guys don't have anything to add, we could read listener comments.
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right. Fev wrote in on Discord. Again, you can always hop on our Discord. We have separate channels for our games of the week. And on the satOlite channel, Fev said this has been a really fun pick. Very well executed tower defense game. And again, I hate tower defense games. This feels more like an action game, in my opinion, than a tower defense game. And I wonder if you guys would agree. But
I'm
Ryan, do
going to
you want to
default.
read Vic's comment here?
I do, but not before I default to Nick.
Okay.
I've never played a tower defense game before, so I can't agree or disagree with you, Don. Nick, do you have any tower defense thoughts for Don?
Oh, it's pretty action heavy. The strategy component is relatively small. You just have to pick a good placement, and really that comes down to the portion of the planet that you decide to install the satellite on, and or the size of the planet that the satellite is orbiting. But that's fairly minimal, and usually within a round or so, you'll have that kind of figured out.
Yeah. But Nick brings up a great point that we didn't mention is the size of the planets makes a big difference in how the game will
Yeah,
play. A large
yeah.
planet, the satellite's going to orbit very slowly before it gets back to the starting point. Where it's a small planet, you can get a lot of action out of because it's so small. So that changes your strategy up quite a bit. And the number of planets, some levels have 2, some have 1, some have, I think, 5 or 4 was the most I saw.
Yeah, speed of rotation around the planet. Yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah.
variables in here. It was a really cool game. Speaking of fans of this game, Vic chimed in our Discord and said, "This game was amazing. I tore through it earlier this year. I had been excited since I saw the trailer in the last direct. Obviously, I want a classic endless tower defense. That's probably not possible due to processing power and screen real estate, but the missions are well thought out and offer good variety. Plus, it's a take on the genre that would be novel on any platform! Exclamation point. Definitely one to remember for next year's awards." Yeah, I agree, Vic. I have made no qualms about that.
This one I think could be up for best use of crank too. I was thinking this would be playable on an Xbox or whatever, but the crank really adds a lot to it, especially the ones where you're controlling the rotation of the planet.
Mhm, mhm.
That's that
Yeah,
1-to-1 with the crank. You would be okay with a joystick, but not nearly the same feel.
yeah, for sure.
All right, and then Dino, of course, Dino is a regular contributor to the segment, but he popped in with a message. Completed the final few messages last night. Great fun. The TLDR thoughts on the game. A captivating tower defense game with fun characters and dialogue. Innovative evolution of mechanics and weapons kept the gameplay fresh throughout. Simple controls and great use of crank. Controlling the orbits of multiple planets with the crank, rotating their satellites in a I'm going to cut that part out, or I'm not going to say the next part because this is a little bit of spoiler. But the tempo was enjoyable. The fast pace of progress felt rewarding. It would be great for the interstitial screens to give scope of the galaxy and gamify the action of moving between locations. That is a good idea.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you just kind of pop from one place to the other with dialogue.
Hmm.
Huh. Yeah, what if they
It'd be
put...
handy to have some context. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Additional emphasis on financial management and upgrades, maybe including an expanded shop visited between rounds, would be interesting to see, but the game is already brilliant and fun without these elements. I typically hate the shop stuff in tower defense games because it's like, oh, I spent all my money on this thing. I should have bought the other one. Now I'm screwed because I can't beat it without the cannon. I bought too many archers or whatever. So I kind of like that you just get the full arsenal that's going to beat the level every time without having to worry about it.
But what if the shopkeeper had a fish head and he was totally not a fish?
And he only sold the exact weapon you need for that level. That would be perfect.
Just brainstorming. Anyway.
Yes, I would appreciate that. It kind of had like a Spaceballs vibe a little bit too, like the way the characters looked and stuff.
I can totally see that, and the really humorous vibe throughout. Yeah. It was really well done. I mean, just the game itself. If it were just the game, it would have been well done.
Mm-hmm.
But the way in which they didn't just add mechanics, but they came through story elements was really deftly woven, and not just story elements, but the whole dialogue was very humorous. Like this is an all-around killer pick, Don.
Cool. Well, thank Lubu for sharing this really great game with us.
Indeed. Thank you.
Nick, what is our next pick of the week?
It's Under the Castle by Danny Diaz, Z Corbs, and Volcano Bites.
Neat.
Yeah, cool. This was one of my favorite games of I don't think it it was last year. Yeah, it was one of my favorites of last year because our thing ran late. Our favorite game segment. Yeah, cool. Have you played it, Nick?
I have played through 2 of the little tutorial areas.
Cool. So there's a lot of meat left.
Well, I've not played it at all, but I know this one was really hyped when it came out, and this will be a great excuse for me to dive in. Hopefully it will be for some listeners too.
What was the last roguelite we just played? Not Core Fault. Didn't we just play another one? Oh. My memory's so bad. And I was like, I don't think Ryan's going to like a roguelike. We have to look at our own website to... You guys don't remember? It wasn't like 2 weeks ago.
I'm always confused about what the heck a roguelike is, even though you guys have explained it to me. It's still fuzzy in my mind.
I guess we haven't played one in a while. It's like you make incremental progress each run and get stronger and stronger over time, and then eventually you're super strong and you can beat the game. But it's a little repetitious.
Definition of it.
A definition, yes.
See, this is why I'm so confused.
I don't know.
I'll tell you when you're older, Ryan.
It's like you go into a music store in the 90s. There was a rock category, pop, country, world. I like that definition. Aerosmith and Slayer are both rock. I don't like, this is post-mathcore, Midwest emo. This is hard rock, whatever. It's like, whatever. They're roguelike's a roguelike.
Yeah, roguelike has come to mean that, but in the original parlance, a roguelike game was very similar to the game Rogue, which had permadeath. It had the ability for you to loot your own corpse with another character. So if you dive down into a dungeon deeply, then you could pick up the items that you were carrying previously. Those kind of things. So it's not the sort of fixed progression that roguelike has come to mean these days. But either are acceptable, I'm sure.
They're both fun. Both of those types of games are entertaining.
Yep.
And this one's entertaining as well.
Very good.
But before we wrap up,
thank you for the explanation again, Nick. I appreciate it.
Before we wrap up, I was going to mention this. I'm pulling a Nick and Ryan and talk about something that's mostly off topic.
What?
Yeah, I know.
Applause.
The first time ever.
Yeah,
I think.
first time.
I think we might need to boop him into this segment. This is monumental.
It's sort of on topic, but so my neighbor started a podcast, and I was like, I'm going to give him a plug. Yeah. And so I was listening to his latest episode today, and I was like, and I popped in my head, it'd be really funny if I plugged this on our podcast. And that'd make his day if he got like an extra 10 followers or something. And then at the end of the episode, he mentions our podcast.
What?
And he's like, hey, my neighbor does this podcast, Hello Playday podcast, and he gave me some tips on recording, blah blah blah. So I'll give him a plug. I was like,
Wow.
oh well, there you go. So
That's
we're
very
scratching
nice.
each other's blacks. So it's called the Adam and Kelly. It's called Adam and Kelly Talk Nerdy. It is hosted on Spotify. So I'll put a link in the show notes. But I found it on Overcast. You can find it on podcast thingies, podcast catchers.
Yeah.
But yeah, they talk about different geek culture. The latest episode, they just basically sit and reminisce over 90s TV shows. But I recommend listening to the Comic-Con episode they did
Ooh.
like 2 episodes ago, and that one was really entertaining. They talk about different people they met at Comic-Con, different celebrities and stuff. It was pretty good. So check it out.
Wow. You said the C word. I'm there.
Right. Yeah, they're comic book fans, Ryan. There you go.
Cool. Cool.
They own some
have
of
an
your
episode-
comics, Ryan.
They
Oh,
what
really?
now?
They do. They own some of your comic books.
Ah, goodness. Did you
Yeah.
gift them to them?
Well, I did, but
Well, that's very
that's
nice.
beside the
Thank you.
fact. Yeah.
That's very cool. Thank you.
Hey, they have
I'll
an
have to-
episode called "Hack the Planet." So I'm intrigued.
Yeah. That one's going to put us on an FBI watch list. But yeah. Anyway. All right. Thank you so much for listening. You can contact us at helloplaydatepodcast@gmail.com. Our website is playdatepodcast.com. And I recommend checking out the show notes for all of our socials or hopping on Discord. That's where you can find us most often. Thank you guys. That was fun.
Indeed. Don, I'm very proud of you for going off topic at the end of the episode today. Good job.
Thank you. That will be the first and last time.
I almost said 10 words this episode.
Sorry, Nick.
My computer almost survived.
We're gonna have a little intervention after this podcast. Make sure everything's all right with Nick. But in the meantime, you can expect to see us back here in a couple weeks talking about Nick's game.
We're going to launch a Patreon to buy Nick a new can and piece of string. So stay tuned. All right. See you guys.
Bye.